I have to tell you about what might be the most important immigration case in the country, and I can almost guarantee you haven't heard of it because it happened in a tiny town along the border of Idaho and Oregon, a town home to fewer than 2,000 mostly Hispanic residents. What happened is on October 19th, 200 officers from 10 different agencies, which keep in mind is enough for one officer for every 10 residents, supported by a helicopter and drones, took part in an immigration raid in Wilder, Idaho. This raid took place at a little family-friendly fall festival, with legal horse racing, raffles, and kettle corn. Now, if you're a normal person, this raid is going to piss you off, but stay with me. Now, it's not only going to piss you off because a local immigration lawyer says that immigration officials temporarily detained every single person at the event. An estimated 400 to 500 people, including children, many of whom were zip-tied and separated from their parents while their parents were being interrogated. It's not just going to piss you off because an overwhelming majority of those in attendance were U.S. citizens or legal residents, not just because this raid was allegedly because the FBI received a tip about illegal gambling on legal horse racing at the event, and not just because this whole ordeal resulted in only 5 adult men being charged with gambling crimes related to the FBI's original investigation, compared with 105 people detained by immigration officers unrelated to gambling. By the way, if 105 people seems like a lot, that means 80% of those in attendance were either citizens or legal residents, and they were detained and interrogated on site anyway. Now, all of these things are already infuriating, but what makes this case unique is that Wilder, Idaho is 472 miles from the Pacific Ocean, meaning it is 372 miles from the 100-mile border zone that gives immigration officials expanded authority. You can see on this map from the ACLU where the 100-mile zone ends. That little red dot in the top left corner is Wilder. This is what makes Wilder different from all the raids in Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York. Wilder is every town, and its residents are all people, which means the people attending this event had full constitutional rights without any of the exceptions that are carved out in the 100-mile border zone. But this raid happened anyway because DHS was included in the investigation to process any immigration-related crimes, given that the people who were being investigated were Hispanic. But for the 400 to 500 people who were attending a public event with their kids, and 105 people who were detained unrelated to the FBI charges, while I'm not a judge or a lawyer, it appears in the process their constitutional rights were violated. This is based on both a plain reading of the 4th and 14th Amendments, but also settled case law, because in 1975, the Supreme Court decided a landmark civil rights case, a case with a 9-0 unanimous ruling, including 6 justices nominated by Republican presidents, where in the majority opinion, the court stated plainly and clearly that it was a violation of the 4th Amendment to even pull somebody over for looking Mexican, a far cry from detaining hundreds of people, separating their kids from them, and zip-tying those kids while they're all interrogated. Even DHS's own policies, written and approved by Congress, state that even to briefly detain someone, a reasonable person must be able to assume that they are here illegally, and that they are likely to flee if not detained. Now, obviously, none of these things apply here, because being Hispanic in public 472 miles from the Pacific Ocean and almost 1,000 miles from the southern border is neither probable cause nor is it reasonable suspicion. Neither is being at a public event on a Sunday afternoon next to people who may or may not have committed other crimes. If that were the case, I would never go to a concert, a dive bar, or the fair again. Fortunately for all of us who like doing those things, guilt by association is not a thing. Blanket warrants are illegal, and race and skin color are not probable cause, which means all of the people who were caught up in this immigration sweep could have an incredibly strong case if they take this to court. So now the question for the ACLU of Idaho is whether or not they will file a lawsuit on behalf of all of the people at the event who had nothing to do with the FBI's investigation. And if they do sue, and if they do win at the lower courts, this would ultimately roll up under the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, just like California, which, regardless of how they decide, could end up at the Supreme Court. If you want to help out, donate to the ACLU, share this story far and wide, and stay tuned for more updates.